Hi, my name is Miguel Electronica, and I am the author of A Light from Within Yoga Workbook and Journal. And I would like to take the time today to go over my book and show you how it will make a world of difference in your life as it relates to the exploration of yoga, self-awareness, and meditation. So you can see on the screen here, this is a cover of the book. And what I'd like to do is go through some of the basic elements of the book and also its sister component, A Light from Within blog. So this is the book here. And the book actually has 342 pages. This particular one is in color. It does come in black and white. So the book is available in color, black and white. It's also available interactive PDF, which is what I'll be showing you today in the presentation, and soon it'll be available as an EPUB, which means you can buy it for Kindle on Amazon. So okay, so the first thing is this is a picture of the workbook. So I'm going to scroll through and show you a couple things. This is the interior, the copyright notices, precautions, things like that. I'll scroll through these pages, some of them pretty quickly, some quotes, acknowledgments, contributors, and I do want to just say, without the help of so many wonderful people and contributors, this book would never have even taken place. So I like to make a mention of them as well, which I do in the book. So moving forward, we have the table of contents. Okay, this is the thing. The table of contents is the blueprint. And because this presentation is done from Acrobat, it's an interactive PDF, okay? So whatever you see me do, if you order the interactive PDF, this is exactly what you get. No different, exactly the same. Okay, and it's actually what you see in the PDF is what created this book. So everything that's in that PDF or this presentation is also exactly in this book. Okay, now because we know this is the blueprint to the book, there are thousands of different hyperlinks. So this book is broken down into 6 different chapters, 2 parts. Okay, it's based on 52 plates. So like, let's say a deck of cards, you have 52 cards. In a way, this book was written around 52 cards or 52 weeks or 52 spreads. 52 is the theme. 52 yoga poses, 52 different affirmations, 52 different haikus, 52 different mudras, poses, and miscellaneous things. And they're actually broken down into the 4 seasons. So just like you have 4 suites of a card, you have the clubs, you have the diamonds, you have the spades, and you have the hearts. Okay, so for us, we have the seasons and the different suits of a card. So that's really important because the book is thematic this way, broken down into 52. Now, this book, when people buy it, they get this book, and it's really great. You get this book, you journal, it's got workbook questions in here, it's got exactly 102 workbook questions and 102 journaling plates, okay? And I'm going to take you through some of this, but 102 is key, okay? Because what you get at the end of the day when you work with this book, the call to action is such that you create your own emotional, it's called a PEIM, a personal emotions imprint map, and we're going to get into that. But I just want to let you know that this is the table of contents, and it's pretty extensive. You've got 342 pages. That's that. Now, when you purchase this book, because you can work with it and write in it and use it, please understand that it has what I like to call, as I already had mentioned, its sister component, which is this blog here. Now, I just put this blog together. It took a while, but just about finished it. This blog here, you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, there are 18 different tabs here. These 18 different tabs actually represent the 6 different chapters in this book. All the elements of the blog, most of them, are actually from this book, except they're put into the blog in such a way where it is an immediate social media platform. You see, so the book is great because it's very personal, but you can, in addition to using it personally and free of charge, I might add, you can create your own Alight from Within blog account. You could make any part of it private, you could make the whole thing public, it doesn't matter. So if you think about it, it's really cool because it allows you to interact with others based on the book and get feedback. And you can also, read about other people's experience. So that's really cool. So just to show you a couple things, I'm going to go back to the book. So no, not when I go to the book has this mirrored sort of component into the blog, okay? So I'm back to the book, I'm back into the table of contents, okay? Now, in the table of contents here, we're going to go to the alphabetized right here, alphabetized anatomical illustrations and alphabetized yoga pose index. This is the thing. This book has a bunch of thumbnails in it. So this book is designed in such a way that when you open it up, you will turn, you can see I'm turning the pages here, you will actually see that once you get past the introduction and the preface, you will find what is, so this is the preface. I'm going to go to the very beginning of it. So we'll start out here. This is the foreword. So the foreword is written by Mary Fari, MD, talks about her experience of being a physician and integrative doc as well, along with a yoga instructor. So she very kindly had read the book, used it, and then had written a foreword for it. So from the foreword we get into the preface, and the preface is really, it's actually a little bit longer than the introduction because I wanted to talk a lot about why I had written it, how it works, things like that, to give an understanding of what the book is about. So much of this book is about, perceptions, awareness, beliefs, emotions, and you can see it on the page here, You can see all these different images. There's actually 540 of them, exactly, throughout the book. 540 images. So when you work through, for example, the preface here, you'll see these images. It talks about the haikus. It talks about the 6 main tenets of the book and the elements for creating greater awareness. It talks a little bit about the staff of Caduceus because this book also has a lot of information about chakras and things like that, and just the more visible and invisible components of our being. So then we come into the introduction, which starts part 1, okay? And you can see here there's this chart here that shows it's 7 different what we call portals into the book itself. So if you look, starting from affirmations, journaling, workbook, haikus, mudras, yoga, deck of cards, these are all different ways that you can actually venture into the book. So that's really important. One of them, maybe it's the haikus, so you're feeling poetic or you're feeling contemplative. You'll turn to the haikus thumbnail, find one, and then it takes you to that particular plate, okay? So we've got that. We're going to move on. The introduction also has a flow chart here of, how it's supposed to work. And then this is the thing. On page 4 here, you'll see the introduction to the PEIM, which is a personal emotions imprint map. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this is one of the takeaways. This is something that's so nice because as you work through this book, you'll actually find a way to gauge and measure how often it is that you default and use certain positive and negative emotions. And these are all based on 102 questions or 102 journal entries, and you actually rate them. They have 17 different emotions. So for example, on this page 4 here, you can see the introduction to the PEIM. you can see this is a wheel, and it's got 17 different emotions, starting with joy, working all the way through 17. The 17th emotion, shy. Okay, being shy, enthusiastic, guilt, anger, so on and so forth. And you'll see at the apex here it says house points. Okay, so it's almost like there's 18 houses here, okay? And the 18th one is the points. And this is sort of like, if you think this is a radar or something, in the beginning it says emotion because there's 17. And then based on the 102 questions and journal entries, based on the emotions, you'll actually rate them on a scale of intensity, and that's how we derive at these variable fanned out colors, which represent your emotions based on your unique specific timeline. So that's really cool. Okay, so moving forward, we go to page 5 here, and you'll see the cards. Now, there is a 52 deck of cards printed at the end of the book here. And in this here, for example, it is right here, okay? So you'll be able to cut these out. You can see the front side of the cards and the back side of the cards. I can turn the page, and again, you'll see, the full spectrum. So that's kind of neat, and because there's, based on 52 plates, 52 cards, 52 poses, 52 haikus, so on and so forth, they're all on the cards, and they work cohesively together. As a matter of fact, you could see on the bottom of page 5 here, the breakdown of the 5 different components on each card, including the cards themselves. So we're going to move on, and then these are the thumbnails we talked about. So the haikus, remember, there are 7 different portals, ways that you could get into the book, and this is it. And you can see the blue and the green, so everything's color coded. There's 4 seasons. This is winter, this is spring, and summer and fall. So that's just affirmations, and then we'll go into, there's 102 workbook questions. There's 26 questions for winter, 26 questions for spring, and so on and so forth. You have your summer and your fall. So then to move on, you have the haikus here. Again, winter, spring, summer, fall. And from the haikus, you have your poses. So again, your poses, these are all 4 seasons: winter, spring, summer, and fall. Now, I told you there are thousands of links in this book, okay? I can put my mouse over any part of this, and you'll see here for spring, I just put my mouse and it says J, and that stands for journal, and the P stands for pose. So for this particular pose, which happens to be the Ace of Hearts, that's spring, and that's Bhujangasana. I can click anything here, and it'll take me right to that page. But before we get into that, I want to go through 1 or 2 more things. These are the mudras, and the same thing with the mudras. I would just put my mouse over one of the mudras, whether it's the journal or the pose section, okay, which you'll learn about. And then from here we have, an introduction, if you will, to the workbook questions and journal entry spreads. If you read this and you turn to page 23, it gives you an example of the first winter workbook spread, and it shows you how to populate and work through it. Okay, so that's really important. Now, page 24 and 25. So there's 4 seasons. This is winter. This is the Ace of Clubs. Okay, and you'll see on the left hand side of the page here it says question or journal number 1. Well, the question number 1 is right here. Haven't procured and made the choice to work with a light from within. How do you feel? Okay, you would answer that question. You've got all this nice space to answer that question. And then as you answer the question, you'll think to yourself, what were some of the emotions that came up? Like haven't procured this book, haven't started to work on. How does it make you feel? Does it make you hopeful? Do you have a lot of trust? Is there admiration? Are you worried? So you would work through, there's 17 emotions, right? You would circle any emotion that's relative to the question and how you respond or react to the question. And then this is a really important thing. It says scale 1 to 10. You would scale every single emotion that you have, and you would rate it 1 to 10. So if there's 102 questions, there's also 102 chart of emotions. So you can see on this page there's 2 questions, and to the very left there's 2 chart of emotions. But this is the thing. You can use either the workbook questions or the journal entry to actually populate and fill out the chart of emotions. So that's what this page shows you right here. This whole thing, page 23, shows you that, for one of these examples, I used a workbook question, and then I decided to use a journal entry to populate my chart of emotions, which is where the 17 emotions in the scale is at. So that's really kind of cool, okay? Now I'm going to go back to this, and you can see question number 1, question number 2, journal entry plate 1, journal entry plate 2. You see? So instead of the question, if I journaled and I wanted to use my journal entry for my chart of emotions, I would just put an X right here by journal, and then I would know that this particular chart of emotions belongs to the journal entry and not the question number 1. So that's important because it'll keep things really accurate for you, okay? And like I said in the very beginning, of all the 7 different portals of ways of getting into this book, every single spread in part 1, because part 1 is about workbook questions and journal entries. Part 2 is actually about the yoga poses and mudras and things like that, but they're all correlated. So for example, if you look at this plate, it's blue, it's winter, it's the Ace of Clubs. Now, so remember, but this is part 1, workbook questions. So I'm going to go back into the table of contents, and I can see right here that I was just there. I can hit winter workbook and journal spread, page 24. That's where I just was. And this is part 1. But now look, if I go to part 2 of this book right here on page 7, I can see chapter 5, and I can see winter poses. So I'm going to hit winter poses. And it takes me to the second part. So there's 2 types of spreads. The first that we were just at, which is the yoga workbook questions and the journal entries. But this is still winter. It's still Ace of Clubs. So you see how this works? And if you look, this particular pose, Tadasana, what was on the original plate for the workbook questions and journal entries. So I can actually take my mouse and then I can come right over here and it'll take me right back. So if I hit, let's see, this here, cut. I have to cut this part out. So then I'm going to go back to the table of contents, go back into my winter workbook here, and then I will see, yes, there is Tadasana. If I hit Tadasana, it takes me back to this part 2. So that's really, really kind of cool how that works, okay? It's very, very cool how that works. So this also takes me back to the workbook questions. So there's always a way to flip-flop, or if you have the physical book, you would just turn to part 2. So that's really, really kind of cool, okay? So moving past this, I'm going to lift this a little bit here. All right, good. So now we've got the full spectrum. So the workbook questions, 2, 3, just like in a deck of cards, except it's all populated differently. 102 questions, 102 chart of emotions belonging to the questions or the journal entries, 102 mudras, 102 poses, 102 haikus, 102 affirmations, and we're in the king now. So we worked through the 13 first cards for the winter suite now, or suit. Now we're in spring because you can see it's green and it says 2. Right, of hearts, and there's an ace right there. So the same thing here. I have 13 mudras, 13 poses, 13 haikus, 13 affirmations, 13 questions, or 26 questions because there's 2 to each page. So you can see how this is coming together here, right? And again, I can just hit that, and then it'll take me into part 2, which is now, the spring Ace of Hearts, but it actually shows me how to do the pose. So remember, this is part 2, poses, right? But as soon as I go back to the first part, which is right here, okay, I'll come in and let's see here. should take me back. We'll go back to, let's see, we'll go back this way. And then we'll hit Spring Workbook, and there it is. Same pose, same mudra. Okay? So that's a really important thing. And I can just move along here from Spring. I would go into Summer, 13 plates, Part 2, okay, or Part 1 here. And there's also a Part 2, and all I have to do is hit this, Marichasana 2, Marichasana 2. You see how this works? It's really, really nice. Takes me back to the workbook portion, and again, you can have this in an interactive PDF format. You could have the physical book, you could have the KDP, which is for Kindle. So there's a lot of different options. Okay, and I'm going to go back into my table of contents, and so I wanted to focus mostly on the workbook questions and the yoga poses, okay, which is in Part 2. Now I want to go back from here to the blog. So we know that how we can work through all 52 spreads, Part 1 and Part 2, 102 questions, 52 poses, 52 haikus, so on and so forth. This blog is set up the same way. Everything in the book, most everything is mirrored right in the blog here. So because we focused a lot on the questions, let's actually find the tab on our blog. It's a sister blog for the book, A Life Within Workbook Questions. I'm going to hit it. Now, you can see on the very top it says All 4 Seasons Workbook Questions, and there's a selected category. So if I'm working in the winter questions, right, in Part 1, I would just hit it. That will take me into all 26 questions from winter. So that's really, really kind of cool. So, how in your efforts to create for yourself might you make a difference in the lives of other people? So you're going to click that. That's the one. Once you click it, you've got this blog with that question, and you will simply just answer that question. You will answer that question, blah, 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 and then you will add the answer and save it. Now, you see this button, it says public here? This is the thing. I can create my own account with this Light from Within blog, and any part of this blog I could make private, or I can keep the whole thing public. So that also is really cool, because we all have different ways of working through things, and sometimes we might be a little bit reluctant to make something public to other people, but then once we start working through other elements of the method, A Light from Within, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm kind of ready to see what other people think, and other people who are working with the book from around the world will actually read your post, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only person, and I had a similar circumstances. You get the point. So it really is a social platform with like-minded people that really allows you to share. It opens up and makes our minds very expansive. That's really cool, and that's a really cool thing. Okay, so, and again, the questions, you have all 102 questions built in that you could respond to, keep public, make private, whatever it is. Okay, but not only that, you've got all this other stuff. You've got affirmations. I can go into winter affirmations, kind of make a comment on it, and make it people can respond as well. It doesn't matter whether you do 5 things or 500. It's a platform. The beauty, and that was my goal from the very beginning, was to have a beautiful book that you can procure, work with it, and choose to work with its sister component, the blog, and that way it makes it all encompassing. So this is Part 1, just focusing on workbook questions and journal, and then how the blog comes into play with it. So I'm going to go back to the book, and we know we went over the workbook questions, the journal entries, we know we went over the poses, we know there's 52 poses. So Part 2 will focus on all of the other aspects of the book. So this will come in 3 parts, and each one about 25 minutes long. Okay, so 3 parts, 25 minutes long. By the time you watch all 3 videos, you will know how to get the most out of A Light from Within. So again, author, developer of the blog, Miguel Electronica. Happy New Year 2016. I look forward to seeing you soon. Namaste.